Today, we're going to look at something fascinating, this almost ritualistic behavior you see in business everywhere, the compulsive need to measure everything. We're calling it measurement theater, and it's time to pull back the curtain. So let me just ask you straight up, are you a performer in this theater? You know, the one where the activity of measuring feels way more important than the actual results. Let's see if any of this feels a little too familiar. You might be in the theater if you've built this gorgeous, complex dashboard. I mean, it's a work of art. Charts updating every second, tracking every little click and scroll. But when someone asks, hey, why do the vast majority of people, 73% of them, see our prices and then just, boof, vanish? Crickets. The data is all there, but the meaning, it's completely missing. Or how about this one? Your CRM is absolutely stuffed with data. I mean, thousands of logged interactions. You can filter it a million different ways. But the moment your best salesperson walks out the door, all the real human intelligence goes with them. You know, the little things. The fact that a certain client hates being called by their legal name or only responds to texts after 7 p.m. That stuff's not in the CRM. And okay, one more. You are religious about tracking billable hours and project timelines, but you have absolutely no clue that the weekly all-hands meeting you insist on is costing you thousands of dollars. Not in salaries, but in completely destroyed focus and momentum for your most creative people. That's a cost that never, ever shows up on a timesheet. If any of this is ringing a bell, well, you're definitely not alone. So why on earth do we do this? Well, the first big reason is something we can call the dashboard security blanket. It's all about the psychological comfort we get from the simple act of measuring, whether we ever use the information or not. And that brings us to the official diagnosis, if you will. Measurement theater syndrome is this compulsive collection of data that serves as a stand-in for the much harder, much more uncomfortable work of actually figuring out what it all means and then, and this is the scary part, changing your behavior because of it. It's a way to feel super productive without having to make a single difficult decision. If we put on our behavioral psychologist hats for a second, it's pretty telling. Observe the business owner in their natural habitat. Notice how they proudly build a dashboard with 47, count 'em, 47 different metrics. But in reality, they only check the same 3, day in and day out. See, this isn't really about analysis. It's a territorial display. It's a signal to the herd, the stakeholders, that the business is sophisticated and data-driven, but without taking on any of the actual risk of a decision that might challenge the status quo. And this leads us to the next psychological layer here, this idea of data collection as a kind of performance art. The act of tracking itself becomes more satisfying than whatever outcome it was supposed to produce in the first place. So the core belief, the cognitive trap we all fall into, is this. We think that just by tracking a behavior, we are somehow improving it. But the reality? Oh, it's much harsher. Tracking something without taking any action based on what you find is an improvement. It's just quantified self-delusion. It's like giving yourself a report card over and over without ever actually studying for the test. Think about this number for a second. 87%. That is the percentage of people who buy a fitness tracker and then just stop using it within 6 months. They perform the ritual of tracking their steps, right? But the really difficult work of changing their behavior, it just doesn't stick. The data, though, that lives on forever. A permanent digital record of abandoned good intentions. That is quantified self-delusion in action. But look, this isn't just about missed opportunities. Sometimes this act of collecting data with the best of intentions can go horribly, horribly wrong. Let's look at a really high-stakes example of when virtuous data betrays us. Back in 2017, the fitness app Strava published this absolutely gorgeous data visualization they called the global heatmap. It was this glowing, interactive map showing every single jog, bike ride, and walk ever logged by its millions of users. It was meant to be a celebration of human movement, but instead, it accidentally became one of the biggest intelligence leaks of the entire decade. Why? Because soldiers, just like the rest of us, were tracking their fitness, and their virtuous act of logging their daily jogs drew perfect, glowing outlines of secret military bases in places like Syria and Afghanistan. Analysts could suddenly see patrol routes, the daily routines of soldiers, even the home addresses of intelligence operatives who like to jog near their headquarters. The soldiers weren't being careless. They were doing something their culture told them was good. But nobody stopped to consider the story all that data bundled together was telling. And this brings the lesson right back to you. Your business is broadcasting intelligence all the time, just like those soldiers were. You're just using customer behavior data instead of jogging routes. The real question is, are you the one reading the map?
Let me give you a classic example. There was a restaurant owner who was convinced he ran a new American restaurant. He obsessed over his food costs, his kitchen staff, the whole shebang. But when he finally looked at his sales data, not by what people bought, but by the hour they bought it, the story was jaw-dropping. After 9 p.m., his business wasn't a restaurant at all. It was a bar that just happened to sell some French fries. He was optimizing for the completely wrong business because the data told a story that totally contradicted the one he was telling himself. Here's another one, this time from a software company. They tracked what features their users clicked on, but they never tracked the sequence. When they finally mapped it out, the pattern was crystal clear. Successful, paying customers signed up, ignored the onboarding video, and immediately created a project. But the users who left, they followed the company's intended path, watch the video, explore the features, and then leave. The onboarding wasn't helping, it was getting in the way. The sequence of actions told a story that the individual clicks never could.
Okay, so how do we escape the theater and start actually running an intelligence operation? It all comes down to a fundamental shift in how we think about the data we're already collecting. The first shift is actually pretty simple. We have to move from obsessing over metrics to searching for stories. Stop asking, what are our numbers, and start asking, what story is this data telling us about how our customers behave? A number is just a symptom. The story is the diagnosis. The second shift is moving from dashboards to investigations. See, a dashboard tells you what happened. An investigation tells you why it happened. So instead of just tracking your churn rate, your investigation should be something like, what's the behavioral pattern that predicts a customer will leave 60 days from now? The dashboard shows you the score. The investigation tells you how to win the game. And finally, we have to stop looking at averages and start looking for patterns. The average customer is a complete myth. That person does not exist. You need to look at the distributions, the sequences, the outliers. Who are your absolute best customers, your top 25%? What did they do differently from the bottom 25%? I promise you the answer to growing your business is almost always hiding in the patterns, not the averages. And that leaves us with one last kind of provocative question to chew on. What if all this measurement theater, all these dashboards and metrics, what if it isn't really about getting smarter? What if your data collection is actually a very sophisticated defense mechanism designed to protect you from the deep, deep discomfort of knowing what you would actually have to change if you just listen to what the data has been telling you all along?